Okay, let's talk about tithing. It's one of those words that can bring up a lot, right? For some people, it feels like an obligation. For others, it's just confusing. Maybe there's even some guilt mixed in there. Is it a hard and fast rule? Is it just a suggestion? Or is it something else entirely? Well, that's what we're going to unpack. We're going to follow this idea all the way from ancient law to see how it becomes something about love.
All right, let's just get straight to it. This is the big question, isn't it? If you're a Christian today, are you required to give a strict 10%? It's a huge deal. But here's the thing. To get a real answer, we can't just start in the present. We've got to go back, way back. We need to see where this whole idea even came from.
So first up, let's just get a super simple definition down so we're all on the same page. The word tithe, it sounds kind of formal, but it literally just comes from an old word that means 1/10. That's it. So anytime you hear tithe, just think 10%. Simple enough. Now let's dig into where it began.
Okay, so our first stop is the Old Testament. And this is so important because if you really want to get what's happening with giving today, you absolutely have to understand the foundation that was laid thousands of years ago. So what's really fascinating here, when you look at this timeline, is that tithing didn't begin as some strict rule. Not at all. It was totally voluntary. You've got Abraham, right? He gives a tenth just out of gratitude. It's spontaneous. And then you see Jacob, and he makes this personal promise to God. It's only later, when Moses comes on the scene, that this very personal act gets turned into an official, structured law for the whole nation of Israel. Big change.
So once it became law, what was the point? Well, it wasn't just some random tax. It had really specific, really practical purposes. The tithe was basically Israel's societal support system. It paid for the priests who served the community, it funded these huge national festivals that brought everybody together, and maybe most importantly, it created a social safety net for the poor, for widows, for foreigners. It had a job to do. And this slide right here shows a really critical distinction. On one side, you've got the tithe. That was required, an obligation under the law. But on the other side, you had offerings, and those were completely different. They were always voluntary, a gift that you gave freely, straight from the heart. So even way back then, there was this clear line between what was required and what was just given.
Now, I'm guessing you've probably heard this verse before. It's one of the most famous, and let's be honest, sometimes one of the most intimidating verses on the whole topic. The prophet Malachi delivers this incredibly powerful challenge from God. But the real question is, who was he talking to?
And here is the absolutely crucial context. Malachi was not speaking to every person on earth for the rest of time. No. He was speaking directly to the nation of Israel who were living under a very specific legal contract with God, a contract that included the tithe. He was calling them back to their responsibilities. Understanding that context changes everything.
Okay, so that's the foundation. But now we get to the New Testament. And with the arrival of Jesus, the whole landscape just shifts. We move out of a system of law and into a brand new reality based on grace.
Now, when Jesus talks about tithing, he's talking to people who are still living under that old covenant law, so he doesn't tell them to stop. But he does something way more radical. He points to what's actually important, the condition of their hearts. He basically says, sure, you're counting out every single mint leaf, but you're totally ignoring the stuff that really matters: justice, mercy, and faith.
This verse from the Apostle Paul really becomes the new mission statement for giving. And just notice the massive shift here. It moves completely away from an external rule to an internal motivation. The key phrases are decided in his heart and not under compulsion. The new standard isn't a percentage, it's the attitude of the heart.
So what did this new idea look like in the real world? Well, the first believers were known for this radical generosity that was kind of shocking to people around them. They shared what they had, they gave to meet specific needs as they came up, and in a lot of cases, they gave way more than 10%. It wasn't about checking a box anymore. It was just a natural overflow of their transformed lives.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together now and look at the big picture. What we're seeing is this fundamental shift in the entire story of giving, a clear move away from just doing your duty to a genuine, heartfelt generosity.
This table really just lays it all out nice and clear. I mean, look at the contrast. Under the old system, the operating principle was law. That meant the tithe was required. The focus was on fulfilling an obligation. But in the New Testament, the whole system gets a reboot. The operating principle is grace. The tithe is no longer commanded, and the focus shifts entirely to the heart. It is a complete change in the why behind the giving.
You know, if you remember one single thing from this entire explainer, I hope it's this slide right here. This is the core transformation. In the Old Testament, people gave because they had to. It was part of their national and religious duty. But under the New Covenant, believers give because they want to. They give because they have been truly transformed from the inside out.
And that brings us all the way back to the beginning. For centuries, the debate has been stuck on this question, which is really a question of obligation. Do I have to give 10%? But as we've seen, that's a question that really comes from that old system of law.
But grace prompts a completely different question. It's not about what I have to do anymore. It's about who I'm becoming. The new question is all about desire. It's about transformation. Has God changed my heart so much that I actually want to give generously? That's the real test. So here's the bottom line. The tithe was a specific law for ancient Israel. Today, the focus isn't on a required percentage, but on the posture of a generous heart. Giving is meant to be a joyful thing, something led by love, not by law. And maybe the most challenging thought of all is this. A standard based on love doesn't call us to give less than 10%, but maybe, just maybe, it calls us to a kind of generosity that's far greater than we ever imagined.